started. I'm
Okay.
very excited. You bear no introduction, Josephine McCarthy. I think people, if they don't know you, they're going to get to know you. I'll link all of your information below, but they ought to obviously know you and your work, especially as a female magician, occultist, artist, writer, probably so many other hats I'm neglecting to mention that you do wear. Um, Thank you so much, first and foremost, for your time and your generosity to be here. Really grateful for you to be here today. And to start off, I want to start off discussion and asking you, what has it been for you like over the years as a female in this
Mhm.
magical occultist space, which we all know is so male dominant? Literally all of the writings trace back to man. So what has it been like for you in the space?
Um, well, the first thing that often comes out is, women can't do magic. I mean, history proves it. There was only ever men doing magic. That's because women were busy having babies because there was no contraceptive. You had to get married and have a baby because the world wasn't like it is today. Hence, there's very few female occultists before the 20th century. As a female occultist, it's been an interesting journey. Before anyone knew who I was, I worked quietly in the States for a good 15 years. I used to commute out to the States and then moved there. And, within the people that I worked with, which were various groups in different cities around the States, um, they got used to, they knew me, they were fine. It was really good. There was never an issue. Where it became an issue was when I started communicating on the internet, because, pre-internet person here, you get shot down in flames. And, it's like, okay, I'd step back and go, every culture has a very thick layer of dumb.
Hmm.
And then, as the population, it gets
Yeah.
smaller and smaller as the people that have some brains. And you're just dealing with dumb, be patient, but be insistent. And straight away it become personal, it get nasty. And so I thought, right, pull away from this because it's just a waste of time, even just trying to chat with someone. And so then I joined an magic academic group. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You voice an opinion, you'd be shot down in flames by someone who it's really obvious might study the history of magic, but knows absolutely fuck all about actual magic that's active and being practiced. And that was my experience for a long time. And what I used to do was not pander to that. I just, if you're going to be a moron, then done. That's it. Bye. And as I became known as a writer, some of those guys would come back and go, "Oh, I didn't realize it was you and your work's very important." It's like, fuck off.
Ooh.
You
Yeah.
showed me what you were like as a human being before you knew who I was. So you can go away. And, people, I will treat people as they show themselves. And so as I started getting more of a name, people started getting more respectful, which I find really sad
Yeah.
in general. And then there's still, I still get guys who mansplain my work to me,
Of
which
course.
I think
Of
is
course.
hilarious. I mean, there's a lot of male magicians that I work with who are superb, and we don't look at each other as gender. We look at each other as human magicians,
Hmm.
and that's it. And there's a lot of magicians out there like that, but every so often there'll be a guy who'll come along and go, "Well, no, you've got it wrong. You know, Quarrier is about blah blah and blah and blah, and you just don't understand it." And it's like, I fucking wrote it.
Wow.
And you'd think they'd stop there and go, oops. But no, they have to keep going. And it's
Yeah.
like, guys, don't do that. And if you find yourself doing that, stop yourself and question, why are you doing that? Is it because it's a female? And you'll say, oh, no, it's because of, but no, it is. You pull yourself back if it's an intelligent discussion and you find yourself doing that, there's a power issue.
Yeah.
And that is really important in magic, that you spot that. We all have power issues of one sort or another. That's how society functions. But when you get something as glaring as that and you're not aware of it or not willing to change it, it will sneak out in your magic, and it will face you in a way that you really don't want to be faced by. So part of magic is learning how to be a human being, a
I'm
decent human being.
I'm curious, when you started, and I mean, I'm not surprised all of this happening to you and the mansplaining that's still taking place, regardless of the abundance of the work that you have out there, clearly. But when you started out, the texts that were accessible to you were primarily written by men. Did you immediately, as a woman, saw the lack of the balanced voice coming from women occultists, or did you see it later down the road when you started practicing magic?
Well, the first thing is I'm not very well read on magic, which blows a lot of people away. I spent my lifetime doing magic and learning magic, and but actual reading of magic, I'm not actually that well read because I'm too busy doing it. I don't actually get much joy from reading other people's work, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And the first magical book I picked up, I mean, I was given work by my father to read, but that was more within Christian mysticism and sort of along those lines. And the first couple of magicians I read were men, but then the third magician I read was Dion Fortune. It was a female. So I didn't see, I wasn't, I was completely, I'm one of these people that lives in a little tunnel and I hyper focus. And when I do something, I'm completely hyper focused in it, whether it's for a week, a month, a year, 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm completely unaware of what is going on around me. So I was like, oh yeah, woman occultist, blah blah, reading. Oh, very good. No, I don't agree with this. I agree with that. What the fuck are you talking about there? That sort of thing. It just didn't occur to me until I started teaching and doing group teaching in the States. And the amount of people that kept coming up and saying it's really good to work with a woman magician. And I was like, why are they saying that? And there's actually more female magicians who work with groups and teach than there are who write. And I think part of that is publishers.
Yeah.
Straight away. Well, it's from a woman. It's got to be new age. It's got to be pink and fluffy and have unicorns.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we're still not that much further on. And if it's not fluff and unicorns, it's, red goddesses and sex, which is the same thing. It's just the dark fluff side. It has no magical relevance whatsoever. Sex and magic takes up maybe 3% of it, unless you're a guy, and where everything, including the food you eat, is filtered through your dick and your testosterone until you get to a certain age. It's just, most men have got a madman strapped to their groin for 40 years, and I really do feel bad for them because they miss out on so much.
Yeah, totally. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there's such strong tie between their dicks and magic and nothing else?
In terms of magic, I don't think it's specific that it comes through magic. I think, and this is not guy bashing because most of my best friends are all guys. I'm a guy girl. I'm
the
more
same,
guy
right?
than I am girl.
Yeah.
I think it's just, and this is not all men, but there's a large proportion of men. Their filter, literally, of everything goes through their sexuality, and I think that's what's the word? It's a nature development thing. You only need one guy to get 22 women pregnant, but a baby has to come through a woman. So you don't need as many guys, you need more women. And to get to the women, you've got to be strong, you've got to have testosterone, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. And too much testosterone until the last century, really, they would all go out to war. It'd be tribal war, it'd be, local war, it'd be war, this, that, and the other. And that kept the population of men down. And there's no place for men. There's no place for men really that are high testosterone, powerful and strong. There's no place for guys who are lower testosterone, that they're pushed down, where actually that's where the interesting guys are. That's where the thinkers are, is the lower testosterone, lower strength, more cerebral.
Mm-hmm.
Our society doesn't have lots of different slots for guys to put their power and energy into. You do see it, but it's not the majority. And you know, the amount of, it's like everyone going on about, oh, witchcraft, you know, it's the women, we all have to be naked all the time. It's like, why? Oh, because it's
Yeah,
traditional.
I never got
No,
that. Yeah.
no, you know, witchcraft, England, it rains all the time. It's always cold, even in summer. It's like, why the fuck do you think people would run around naked? And that all goes back to a couple of male occultists. Hey, you have to be naked, girls.
Exactly.
Come on.
And we're
Yeah,
gonna all have orgy here in the woods.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, just if you want to fuck around, just fuck around. Don't try and pretend it's something else.
Yeah.
If you want to fuck around and dress up, then fuck around and dress up. But don't pretend that you're actually doing the real thing. You're just cosplaying. And quite a large, sadly, percentage today of magical writers are cosplayers that dabble, but it's a man and they put the front out, and they can be, you know, they can speak with authority. Whereas women, no matter how good you are, you get pushed back and
Yes.
automatically assumed that,
Completely.
you know. And I just find it pathetic
Yeah.
in the 21st century that this still happens. And then people wonder why they can't get partners or anything else. It's because we're playing out these 16th century roles in a 21st century. It's like, get a grip, people, you know?
Yeah. And you know, it gets into the mindset, the lack, I would say, of a mindset in magic, where I feel even women, and again, this is not about bashing one gender or not at all, but it's still present, this disparity in gender, but where people just, both men and women, negate to use their own questionings, their own sense of awareness, right? They will read these books and, oh, I gotta get naked and go dance in the woods, and to go literally get naked and dance in the woods. They didn't have the agency to ask, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
What is the purpose for me? And how is that going to magically enhance my life, if at
Yeah.
all?
Yeah. Yeah. There's
There's a lot of sheep, in other terms, a lot of
yeah.
sheep.
Yeah. And not a lot of why,
Yeah.
you know, why. It's like, you know, Crowley, very interesting magician, very screwed up, which is not surprising in the time and his family background and everything. The guy had some serious problems, but he was also very intelligent, very interesting. And you know, he was that era that had just come out of the Victorian straight-lacedness, whereas sex couldn't be enjoyed. You know, it was just appalling. The Victorian Britain was seriously screwed up. But he had this very dark, twisted sense of humor.
Yeah.
And what he do, and he didn't invent this, because you actually see this in 16th century texts in grimoires, is he would get some quite powerful and interesting magic, and then he'd dress it up in rituals, in sexuality, in shock and horror, and taking the piss, jokes, just to see. And you know, to him, that filtered all the idiots out.
Yeah.
Now, out of 100, you get 2 that would actually get what he was talking about. That's not a good way to do it, but that was the only way he could do it at his time. And so I think his work is either followed slavishly
Yeah.
and copied, or it's completely ignored because he was so fucked up. But there is some interesting magical stuff there, just from a historical point of view of what he was trying to push against. But yeah, it's like, you know, you look at what came out of Crowley, and you just think, when you're 17, 18, yeah, you can swallow this and go, oh, this is so exciting and it's so dark and there's lots of sex and there's this, that, and the other and blah. There should come a stage by the time you get to 30 of going, really?
Yeah.
Really? Is that it?
Yeah, I think we need more of that. I mean, Crowley to me always is the writer that you got to read between the lines, I feel.
Yeah.
That's how I read him. It's like, you can't take him literally and you also can't ignore him. You got to, it's almost as if he wants to be read between the lines because, like you
Yeah.
said, he wants very few to get it. But today I feel relaxed at, and this magic, and this was one of the questions, today more than ever, I feel that people have such a draw, almost a pull toward magic, because there's the need to get the results now, this now. And I remember I was interested in actually pursuing magical works, and I started Yokovaria course, which is,
Oh, baby.
it's, I started it, and I'm going to be honest with you, after probably a week, I said, fuck this. I just don't have stamina, I don't have discipline. But
Yeah.
it was good because it made me realize not only what is entailed if you're really going to take this seriously, but it also made me to look at why is it outlined the way it is outlined, to really kind of break away all of this ego shit. I want it now, I want it, right? To really get into yourself, because to me, magic is really work on yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understood what it was for and was there for, but it was not for me. So why do you think we have so much of that today, and how dangerous is that for people to just jump into occult and magic without all this precursor discipline?
It's always been there. While ever there's been magic, there's always been that element of, I can use magic now to get what I want, and I don't need to actually become a magician. I can just get this recipe book and do this ritual and I will get what I want.
Yeah.
And that's marketing, right from the 13th century. Marketing. Greek magical papyri, marketing, basically, to feed that need where there was a great deal of money. It just wasn't as, because there was no printing presses. So one book copied out was very valuable. But here's all the secrets. You want to do it, you knock yourself out. So there's always been that. It's just that now it's on steroids. And the reason I think personally it's come like that goes back to this shift in social and economic thinking back in the late 70s with Milton Friedman and him advising Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, and the big rise of the unregulated free market. When you read Friedman's work, you can really see the roots of need for instant gratification, selfishness, egocentricity. And he didn't put it together with that in mind. It's just that, like a lot of economists, he didn't take human nature into consideration, that there's a lot of people who are very greedy, very dumb, quite nasty. And you give them unregulated power and they will run with it, they won't share it, and they want, and so the marketing became quite aggressive. You deserve this.
Yeah.
This ice
You
cream,
need
you've
this.
worked so hard, you need it, you deserve it. It's all of that sort of thing. And you've got generations now, because this was the 70s, you've got generations now that have grown up with that as a mantra, and they don't know any different. They don't remember they don't know what it was like before that time. Not that it was any golden era, it wasn't, it was just different. But it's embedded. And there was also a push for men and women both to go out to work full time when they had a family. And so the kids went into the creche. And there was this constant pressure to earn and then consume with what you've earned, because otherwise the free market can't exist. So the kids grow up with a lot less parental, whether it's mother or father or what, contact on an hour-to-hour, day-to-day basis, especially as small children. And instead they were given things.
Yeah.
They were bought and they were given. So being given things, getting things, is your blankie. It makes you feel good when you've had a bad time. And so what people do now is, you know, and people are constantly under pressure now because they're not getting paid like they were getting paid 30 years ago.
Yeah.
People get shit wages and they're on stable jobs, high costs. I need to do something for myself. I've got this deck. I'm going to do magic and I'm going to get myself this. And they're going after what they want, what they think will make them feel better. And that's not what magic does. Or if it does, it comes with a slap. You know, it's like you want to eat hot dogs every day for every single meal. Okay. And then as you're dying, it'll go, did you really want that? Because you
Yeah.
didn't need it. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people think magic is a game and that it's not real and that it doesn't do anything. And for some people, it doesn't, but it actually is real and it does work. And it just doesn't work in the Hollywood. Like I do this and bang, it's there. It's
Exactly.
all done in an hour and a half, you know. It seeps and it can come back up 5 years later. But then you recognize it's like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I remember that, you know. And that's how you learn. You don't learn in a workshop. You don't learn from reading a book or even doing a course. Not really. You learn by taking steps and then experiencing the ramifications of that and how the powers come through. So people do go into magic with this, well, I want it and I want it now. And there's plenty of writers and teachers that will give them what they want, with absolutely no morals and no qualms.
Yeah.
Some of them put a lot of stuff out that's just complete bullshit and won't do anything, won't harm anyone. But psychologically, you know, it's a good placebo. It's like, here, get on with that. That's fine. And then there's some that will mix and play around with very old magical patterns and make it all very dark fluff and put that out. That sort of thing can do a lot of damage. And, you know, you're talking about stuff that can start to unravel people psychologically. And especially if you get someone who's sensitive or bipolar or anything like that, you're going to have a situation not too far down the road where they become very unstable.
Yeah.
And the deeper they are in magic and doing that, the more the damage is done. So that, I mean, there's quite a few magicians I've known where I've said to them, you want to stay away from that. And, you know, not for any moral reason, it's just not right for you. No. 2 years later, 3 years later, they've been sectioned and put in long-term psychiatric unit because it's cracked them. And there is some correlation which biologically I don't understand, but magically do, between high testosterone and blowing yourself up in magic. Not from actions, not from doing testosterone actions. It's just that, you know, a young man in the height of his testosterone, if he tends to be very high testosterone and manages to also tap into magic that works, they tend to spin out a lot easier and the damage is often long lasting.
Yeah.
So
Sure. Yeah. I think that is one of the things people don't talk about, the mindset. When I say mindset, the psychological, resilient mindset that I feel so needed for magic. And I see a lot of people, especially go and dabble with demonology, which I think can be a great way to learn a lot about yourself, especially if you see psychological attributes of yourself. But there's no mental preparedness, and you literally can't go psychotic. I mean, your ego can totally fragment for sure. I mean, that's what Jung went through. That's what the Red Book is about. Jung going through psychosis, literally, and documenting his experience in psychotic states of mind. But you know, talking about the mindset, I think the rigorous discipline is essential, especially essential for people who really need to strip away and need to almost rebuild, if you will, a stronger mindset. But would you say there's also people out there who just innately, is psychologically already pretty assertive, pretty grounded, pretty strong, have very good self-awareness, who can just immediately go into working with magic? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's and this is one of the things I tied myself in knots with when I was writing Warrior, because I had to write it for people of all different types, from all different cultures. If you could read English, then you could do it. And so there's had to be a lot of checks and balances in there for more fragile people, and also springboards for more stable people. And I was toying around with it and which was the best way to go. And I thought, well, for someone who's pretty solid and they're ready to go, they'll find it. And they'll be able to dip into my work and other people's work. And that would just be a small dip. They get what they need and they'll actually develop their own. For the majority, there's two ways of approaching it. One is which was Dion Fortune's thing, is to go through a lot of psychotherapy first. The problem with that is you can end up stuck in psychotherapy and stuck in the magic as a psychological tool and not actually magic. The other way of doing it, which is the way that I did it with Quarry, and both ways have got limits and good parts. With Quarry, what it does is at first there's a discipline which is there to filter people out. It's like either they don't have time, or that's not how their mind works. And then they're introduced very early on into a series of magical exercises, but that are actually catalysts. And if a person is ready in their fate pattern to start moving forward in breakthroughs, it will trigger. And they'll have an experience and they think that's it. But what it actually does is it starts to unfold things and bring it up in their life outside of themselves, and they react to it. The majority of psychological strengthening in that approach comes from the student magician not reflecting on themselves, but reflecting on others. So it's like a projection outwards, and you work with beings, not as psychological projections, but as real beings. They are real beings. And you will learn very quick from your interactions how to behave, how to be a decent person, because if not, you're going to get smacked and you're going to have nightmares and you're going to have things turning up over you going, see that car over there? It can literally get like that. So, and they learn really quick, and it goes up in strength through the course. So hence the experiences in the apprentice section are mild but enough, and there's a lot of work where they do service, because then they're learning to play nice and make friends. By the time they get into the adept section, there's catalysts where they're in with beings and powers, and they behave in as they do things first for service, for the land, for the beings, for their nation, for whatever. And it's so difficult to explain in a few sentences, but it's like it changes you. It brings your lens into focus, so you start to see things from a different angle, which then you confront in everyday life, and you think, that's where I need to back up a bit, or that didn't kick me off like it would have done a year ago. Why is that? Something's changed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that makes me think of our tendency to see everything as a projection, which I think things can have duality, right? And beyond dualities. A demon can be a projection, and at the same time, it's its own thing, right? Do you think this tendency to see everything as an extension, as a part of ourselves immediately, versus as something out there, completely having nothing to do with ourselves, is one of the biggest dangers of today's people practicing magic?
I wouldn't say it's a danger. That's a trap. It's, if people are so self-absorbed, they're not going to get very far in magic. And so it traps them in this glitter mirror where they're constantly everything is their projection, everything comes from them. But it's a weird paradox because, you know, everything outside of you is conscious and intelligent, and you can communicate with it. And the deeper you get into magic and realize this, the more you realize that you're not actually individuals. It's not like you've projected the world. It's like you are a part of something. It's like a white blood cell learning that the red blood cell next to it is actually in the same body.
Yeah.
But they're individual cells, but they're in the same body. So you can tie yourself in knots in psychology, theology, all of this in these discussions of where do we end and where does the other begin, because it isn't clear cut. And you're washing back and forth all the time, which is part of how magic works. And it's constantly changing you.
Yeah.
Who you surround yourself with changes you. Where you live changes you. What you bring into a place changes the people there energetically. But yeah, there's always been that little narcissistic sort of group where magic is all psychology, it's all a projection, and nothing is actually real. And then there's people that cosplay it. They're all actually other beings, but their understanding is not there, so they're cosplaying it. So when the shit hits the fan, it's like, well, why don't you just do a reading and have a look? Or if it's this, why don't you just do this magically? Oh, well, no, that's not going to work. I need. It's like, well, why are you doing magic?
Yeah.
You know, if it's a necessity, do it. And this is the other thing about like results magic. People don't get, if it's a necessity, it works, it's fine. If it's not a necessity, if it's a want, it can start to destroy you. So it goes back to that circuit, what you were saying at the beginning, of knowing yourself and getting your shit together before you really dabble in magic.
Yeah.
Because one of the things is to know the difference between what you want and what you actually need. And that's a lot harder today because people are bombarded with marketing 24/7 telling you what you need. And people don't actually know what they need.
Yeah. And also the discrepancy between once you realize what it is that you need, can you actually give it to yourself? Can you actively get it yourself versus going to, right? I think that's another thing is for people like, oh, I'll just use, this magic to get the result, but no, do the work. You are the magic, doing that internal work is
well, if you're using magic for what you need before you've tried to physically get what you need, you're weakening yourself.
Yeah.
Because you become totally dependent on something outside of you providing for you. So you turn back into a baby, which is one of the problems in magic, is that people are still looking for mummy and daddy. Just like in religion.
Yes.
Guy daddy.
Yes.
Mummy.
Yeah.
None of that is to do with spirituality or magic. That's to do with, I want mummying, I want protecting, I want to feel something has my back. I can't stand on 2 feet. Give it to me because I need it. And it's like, you need a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Wash more often. Be nice.
Read some fiction for a change. Yeah.
You need to get a car, get a job. And if you're doing everything that you can and it's not enough, and it's a real need, then you use magic and say, like, hey guys, I really need this to be able to do that, and you want me to do that too. I need some help here.
Exactly. But that's not fun. You see, that's for people, that's not especially today, the way it has been so glamorized, and it has been, I feel today magic has been diluted, good word. It has been diluted to not only this quick and easy you can get results, but everything is about you. You can become the goddess, you can become the god, you can and invite this great being into your living room, and you can, it's like all of this. no, seriously, and here's the tools for it. And all you got to do is you got to wear your cape and you got to wear your
Yep.
pentagram and you got to figure it out. And it's very, I think part of it is social media. Part of it is
Yeah.
platforms such as even mine, YouTube, right? Where people are talking about it. And there's
Yeah.
people who don't really know what they're talking about it. And not only talking about, but teaching. And here's the
Yep.
books you got to read to become a magician. And,
Yeah.
here's how to get in touch with goddess. And that's a really big problem. And
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel
it's marketing. They're copying marketing methods, and a lot of that goes back to people either wanting to make money or they want a pedestal to stand on because they want attention. And yeah, I mean, I don't go on TikTok and things like that. I have an Instagram account that I can't get onto because I don't have a smartphone and my laptop still won't work on Instagram. And everyone who's trying to connect with me on Instagram, there's nothing there. I can't get on the fucking
you're
account.
very lucky. You're very lucky if you can connect to social media, because
Oh,
just the words for you, social and media. It's so problematic. But
but no, it's everything. I mean, I really feel bad for youngsters in their teens and early
yeah,
20s now, because there's so much pressure to look perfect, to be an expert. And they want to do that because it makes them feel important. It gives them a sense of power and control and makes money and all these good things. But they are, like you say, they have no idea what they're talking about.
yeah.
And it's just very sad to see. It's degenerate. It's incredibly degenerate. And most people that get into that hopefully will just grow up and move on at some point. And it won't last forever, but
Yeah, it's a promised wasteland, and it makes me think of this question I have for you, of how we're so egocentric today, so individualistic. So not only with in regards to magic, but in regards to obviously the planet. It's it's very stark clear how egocentric and abusive we are to the planet. When we regard the world in such a way where it is us and we're here and everything is here for us, how does that affect the spirits and other beings? And how does it affect our relationship with them, and most importantly, their relationship? Forget our relationship with them. Our relationship with them is fucked up, but their relationship with us. Do they even
well,
want to have any relationship with us?
again, it's down to individuals, and a way you could look at it is, again, back to Milton Friedman and what he did in social engineering in America, and then Britain copied it. There is only the individual, there is no community. It was like a mantra that was used here, and very abusive. And this was the big rise from the late 70s up into the 80s of consuming, which is the basis of all of this. You go to a culture that didn't have that, and that was more like a social democracy or a very small community, and they find it so abusive and shocking, just how people present themselves and act, and are completely unaware of the needs of other people around them. In the 80s, you talk to people in Turkey and Greece about tourists, and they go, "Oh, for God's sake, these people are like toddlers." The inner world's the same. Land beings, spirit beings, see the majority of people tapping into magic and trying to connect with them as being toddlers, spoiled, egocentric,
Yeah.
clueless, heavy-handed, which is another reason why when I was setting out magical training, I had to think about how do I get people into a position of working with spirit beings, because the approach is going to have to be very different from how I did it, because I grew up in a totally different world. And so the very first things they do when it's to do with the land, the spirits, the beings, is that you go in with an attitude of, what can I do for you? Not what can you do for me? Can you give me this? You're going, do you need my help? I have a physical body, which spirits don't do. It's very useful. What can you do for me? And when they say, will you do this? Then you say, yes, I will. And you go away and do it. And they're like, maybe that one's not too bad then. And that's
Yeah.
literally how it goes.
Yeah.
Then you start to build the relationship step by step by step. You have to prove yourself that you're a decent person, not because then you can get what you want, because that becomes very visible. We're used to hiding our thoughts and emotions in the physical body. You know, you can control your face, you can control your body language, so that people don't know what you're thinking. What you think, how you feel is very visible. It's an energy that's constantly shifting and moving. And inner beings, you can see the same with them, and they see that and they can see this dishonesty. And oh, I'm going to play nice so that I can get what I want. And they'll just go, no, thank you. And a parasite will come along and go, oh, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Comes along, yeah, I'm a land being. Oh, you want to hold hands? Here you are.
Yeah.
Bye.
Wow, which goes back to the discussion we had about magic is not about changing the world, it's about changing yourself first, and by doing so you change the world. Same way
Yeah.
you're going into magic being an asshole, you're gonna confront magic, but you're gonna confront that type of energetic things
Yeah.
out there that are gonna click to you. So
Yeah.
you really have to work on yourself and have this, in my grad school, we were taught my professor said, you have to keep your internal instrument clean, constantly clean, meaning detoxing of ideas and paradigms and your own shit. Every
Yeah.
time you sit down with a client, you gotta keep it clean and you gotta keep detoxing it. And that's the
Yeah.
same thing we're talking about here.
Yeah. And thinking, we do so many things in social interactions where we just don't think. We don't think how it would affect another person.
Yeah.
And it's a big rewiring to learn to think about every action that you take, everything that you do, is how is that going to affect somebody else? How are they going to perceive it? Is it useful to them as well as me? Is it, you can change somebody's day by just holding the door open for them and letting them go first, or standing up on the train and letting the old lady sit down. It's just common decency.
Yes. Yeah. But it's
It's
so
just,
lacking.
and it's like, well, why should I do that? She's not my grandma. That you go into the inner worlds with that attitude, you're going to be very alone, because they're just going to go, whoa, that one
Yeah.
smells, keep away. And it's
Yeah.
very immature. You need maturity to do magic. And that's not to do with age. I mean, I know some 15 and 16-year-olds that are more mature than some 40-year-olds that I know.
Yeah.
It's about your attitude. And magic is not nice and polite. This is the other thing people don't get, is in our society, you can do something wrong and go, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, all right then. Oh, don't punish me like that, because that'll be terrible and I'll be scarred forever. Oh, okay. Don't work like that in the inner worlds. It's nature. It's literally tooth and claw like nature. You behave like an asshole, you'll be treated like an asshole. You be violent, you're gonna get violence back so hard you won't know what's hit you.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think
it's not often straight away, but it comes. And you just sit there waiting for it to hit, watching, like, oh, that guy was an idiot.
Yeah, and I think we can see the magic play out in real world, right? In terms of people's internal selves. But it's sad, right? Because we're thinking about also the internet with the technology and internet, and how people commenting on internet towards other people, because they stop seeing other beings as beings, they start seeing other people on internet as objects, right? So you're no longer a subject, you're an object. This is why it's so easy for me to comment under your video, or comment somewhere else, or comment under your work and mansplain it, because you're not even a person to me anymore. And that sips into the life. And yeah, I see a lot
And
of
also that they don't get, they think, when you see people leaving comments like that, what I see is someone who's immature who's weak and who's scared, who the only way that they can feel any sort of strength or attention or anything is to put somebody else down really harshly, because that makes them feel good. And they're showing off to other people, like, look how clever I am, I can da, 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 da. What they don't get is you look like such an idiot. You know, you look like you're a 12-year-old in your mum's basement, just like, yeah,
That's what I picture.
you're just
I
a
picture somebody in
moron.
the basement.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, rather than say, well, actually, I don't agree with this, and this is why.
Yeah.
That's valid. That's fine. You know, oh,
That
this,
requires thinking. That requires thinking, and people don't want to think.
yeah. So then they're just
Yeah.
considered to be idiots by everyone else. It's like, make your choice. If you want to be on a pedestal and have some attention and that, do some thinking. And there's no reason why you couldn't get the attention that you need, is just by being an intelligent, decent person who's over the mental age of 7. You know, if you work at it, you can get there. You know?
Yeah, and we touched on the diluted part of the magic in this world, how everything is nice and fluffy and you won't get hurt. But then the pendulum, I feel, also swings completely the other way, where there's this, don't you go there, don't you dabble, because oh my God, if you're not going to do your ritual circle and you're going to open up the portal and somebody's going to come into your life and then you won't be able to get them out of there. So you're laughing because, and I want to know your thoughts, because, but seriously, there's pendulum swings completely the other way, where don't you touch this, because
Yeah.
once you open that, you're pretty much fucked and you're on your own, which I don't think that's how things operate. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's like everything else, and at the moment out in the world, everything is polarized, everything is black and white, everything is really good or really bad, and there's no nuance in the middle. And magic can be fluffy and harmless if you're totally unable to do anything and you're cosplaying. No harm whatsoever. Magic can be very dangerous if you've got certain psychiatric conditions and you dive straight into some very heavy stuff. You can blow yourself up with it and do some serious damage. The majority of humanity sits more in the middle. And I'd say it's very much like mountain climbing, cliff face climbing. Get your muscles strong first, you know, and make sure you've got the right equipment, as in not, oh, well, it has to be, you know, a metal sword of this, that, and the other. It's just like, you know your inner tools, meditation, focus, decency, all of those things. And it's going to be hard work at times, and you could fall and you might scrape and you might break a bone. You know, the deeper you get into magic, it has dangers. It isn't safe. But then neither is swimming or driving a car down the road.
Yeah.
It's that sort of level where, you know, you don't put a 10-year-old in a car, like an automatic car, and set them off. They'll kill someone or themselves, or do some serious damage. What you do is you wait till they're a certain age and then you give them lessons, and then they practice and they get better. And 3 years down the line, usually they're a pretty good driver. Within 10 years, they're driving, their head's just doing it automatically. Magic's exactly the same. Every skill works like that. So yeah, I mean, there's times I'll say to someone, you know, don't do that. That's not safe. And if it's not, you know, sort of going to kill them, I'll say, you know, if they carry on going, oh no, but I want to, it's like, well, you know, if you get in a mess, you're on your own, sort yourself out. If there's something that someone's going to do and I know it's going to be a threat to their life, I will say to them, you really do not want to do that unless you're willing to take that chance.
Yeah.
And if you are seriously damaged, I will not help you. And that, people get very shocked at that. And it's like, no, I mean, 20 years ago, I would have dived in and put them back together. But it's like, no, I'm not going to. You make a choice. This is the rules of magic. You make a choice. and you do something that stupid and it kills you, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
It's not my problem. And there's only so much you can do to help people, because it's not like putting a sticking plaster on them and giving them a cup of tea. Putting someone back together who's so badly damaged, especially for me at my age now, could kill me, because it takes so much energy,
Mm-hmm.
work to do it. And it's not a one-off thing. It takes months to put someone back together again.
Yeah.
You know, it once you're older, it can do you a lot of damage. So no, I'm not going to risk my life for some fucking 24-year-old tanked up idiot because he wanted to call the devil and do this, and something actually worked and completely blew his life apart and sent him nuts. Well, you made the choice, sunshine. It's your
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, it's talking about accountability and responsibility for your choices. And I love how you made a metaphor of mountain climbing, because that's exactly how I see magic. It's like real life, right?
Yeah.
You don't just get behind the wheel of a car if you've never driven and start driving. You don't just, do so many things. You really, you learn, you prepare. And if you intuition tells you you're not ready, you take some more time, but you do all of the things. And there's hazards just like with everything else. We can get killed today, just, I don't know, something falling on my house today.
Yeah.
You take that risk every day. Waking up and living a life is a risk.
Yeah.
Getting into magic is a risk too.
Yeah.
And we outweigh that risk with all the potential mindfulness and responsibilities that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. To wrap up, these are absolutely my two favorites. I started with this, absolutely love this back, love the artwork. Recently got this. As people know, I have done an in-depth review of this. I love this deck. There's something very, I say primal, instinctual about the images and the artwork in this deck. There's obviously similarities, but they're so also very different. They're clearly both tools for magicians to work through, and both can be for solitary practice. But yet, I feel they're so strongly different. How would you categorize them?
Well, the Quarrier deck was designed originally as a teaching tool for magical students. Divination in general in magical training is not, they'll do lots of lessons, but not learn divination. So, you go to a lot of magical schools that can tell you about every single card and blah, 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 but they can't actually do anything really practical and magical with it. And a lot of the decks that are out there in terms of magical training are just not right. It's not what I was looking for. And a divination deck is one of the core tools in magic, because and it's from a divination point of view, not a psychology point of view. Especially as you start getting into working with beings and powers, and it's real, and it's getting real. You've crossed over that bridge from yourself and the imagination, and you realize from what's happening around you that actually there's something here. You can use divination as a tool of looking at the fate pattern and saying, well, if I do this, my instinct is saying no. Is this dangerous for me at this time? And it'll either come out as yes or no. But also teaching people power vocabulary. So in the Quarrier deck, there's different realms. There's the different realms and different types of powers, which run through magic, but done in a specific way so that you can see where each power lives and what it does and what it's connected to. So in that way, it's a very different deck. It's more structured and has a lot of information in it, really, that a lot of magicians just don't need. It's like, don't need that. I just need this, this, and this. It's too much detail, which can happen in divination. It's a very limited vocabulary. If you think anywhere from 78 to 81, 82 cards, if you think that's your whole vocabulary for holding a conversation, it's not actually that much. So you know, so many people, magicians that I really respect, were saying to me, you know, I really, really like that deck, but I'm getting lost in teaching structure when I'm actually needing to just focus in on this. And because it's tilted very much towards the stream of magic that Quarrier works with in training, other streams are different. So I thought actually that, you know, and a few, because I designed my own deck in my 20s because I'd had enough of the Rider-Waite. And they said, you know, can you just do a deck that would work for magicians that are not doing Quarrier? And it's like, yeah. Put it in the back of my head. And then just before the pandemic hit, I started having dreams and contacts saying, you need to do paint a picture, do this. And the deck came out of it. So when you're looking at the Mr. Goggers deck, you don't have the structure of all the realms. What you have instead, so you're not looking out. Quarrier looks out at powers, places, and where they all belong. What the Mr. Goggers deck does is it tells you types of beings, types of places, types of powers, and events. So it's a vocabulary, it's a pure vocabulary, it's not a teaching deck. And then within that, where it's hung on to is the path that any magician or mystic, there are certain core points and elements along the path that happen, and they'll express in different ways in a person's life, but the actual core of it is the same. So they're plopped in it, in the places, the people, and everything else. So you can actually map out the path from somebody starting a religious or a mystical or a magical path, and all the important stages that come along with that, to get them to where they're trying to go magically. So it's much more of a practical deck, is the short way of saying it. And its vocabulary is more pointed and focused, because it doesn't need to have some of the details that the Quarrier deck you can get. It's like if you're trying to figure out the powers behind the magical front or behind the being, you might get a wider answer from the Quarrier deck. But the Mr. Goggers deck will tell you where it's coming from. Here it is now. This is what it intends. That's where it's going. And this is the long-term pattern that's going to come out of that. And if you don't want to go down there, well, actually, this might be an idea to think about. So,
yeah, it's very, I found it very instrumental with some of the repetitive significant dreams I had, as well. And it's almost as if it really looks inwards, and I'm not mean inwards as a projection, but as telling you where you almost psychically at. That's what it also feels like to me too. And it's really, it also has a tendency to really slow you down and to really reel you in, if you need to be reeled in, I feel. And yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, one of the other things for me was that I painted it myself, whereas the Quarrier deck was done by two artists. And having to do it myself was scary, because I'd only ever dabbled a little bit in paint, and my drawing is, and I say this honestly, hand on heart, is like a 5-year-old. I can paint better than I can draw, put it that way. I could allow things to come through it. You know, with the two artists for Quarrier, who are both magicians, I gave them briefs. And they'd both been working on decks anyway, and didn't realize that they were both actually working on the same deck. So they put them together, and I filled in, like, you need this, and this, and would structure it that way. With the Mr. Goggers deck, I had to paint it, and I had to bring the power through. And I planned it all out very neatly, and the inner lock just sort of went, that's cute. Anyway, paint this is how it's going to come out. And the painting would not work at all until I gave in and just let it do its own thing. And then the whole thing had come out. And it's like, oh, there you are. I see you now.
Yeah,
So it was a magical process in itself.
it feels like that. It definitely comes through, and it feels like there's a life. Each card is not just an image and not just a doorway or an entryway, but it's also it feels like it's vibrating. It's life vibrating. At least to me, when I first got the deck, that's the first things that I felt. I thought, oh shit, this is this is like, who the fuck did I just invited into my life? This is and immediately I knew that it's not, the way a lot of people use tarot today. This is not like, oh, what's my daily card for today?
Oh,
Or,
yeah. No.
like, should
Yeah.
I go on a date or not? It's not at all. Because, it's not even a tarot deck. So immediately I knew it is something else, and it's for a deeper type of work and self-awareness and connection. And it's like literally having the guide there when you really need the guide.
Yeah. Although I've been pushing it to see what it can do and what it can't do. And it actually does mundane readings better than I thought it would. I thought it'd be totally useless, but I'm beginning. It's just learning the language. I'm having to learn its language, and slowly but surely, what I'm doing is, if I'm doing any mundane readings and taking a photo of the reading and then writing my thoughts and then going back and looking at it when the event actually happened, it's like, oh, that's what that was. And so stuff like defeat, it has its magical meaning and everything, and its mundane meaning, besides defeat, tripping up, falling over, depression, which is a sense of defeat. But it came up for someone that was depressed. It was like, gotcha. Leadership is being showing for wealth and position, not necessarily just leadership. So that I'm learning its little language, because it's talking slowly to me, but I'm incredibly stupid, so it's taking me
Well, I think much of it is learning how it talks to you, right? It's just like when you go out there in the magical world and you meet other beings, how they're going to also approach to you and talk to you is going to be different than how they're going to talk to me. So it's that relationship we're establishing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do a lot of mundane readings, especially these days. It's much more fun to actually get hit by what comes around the corner, unless I get a warning of like, you need to do a reading, and I've got certain signals that'll say you need to do a reading. So I'll show me what's happening, and it's like, explosion. Okay, how do I avoid it? This. Oh yeah. Okay, do that. I'll go away and do it and come back. Is it all good now? It's like, yeah, we're good. You say, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad that you shared that, because I know that some people watching like, well, how the heck do I use this if they don't feel, certain aspects of it. And obviously you're very generous with having the book. People can buy it. I need to hold my books. I can do the digital thing, but it's available for free, and people also can just use that in of itself. Which is very.
I have to say that I think it's okay in America, but in the UK, Amazon's not been stocking it, so it's third-party sellers, and they're ramping the price right up on it, which is not nice. So we've started selling the books with the deck. I've been ordering in some of the books, and so we do it at a humane, normal. Actually, it's less than it would have been on Amazon, because Amazon take a huge chunk. So the price is higher. Because there was somebody in Spain tried to buy it on Amazon, and their hardback was like 65 euros. It's like, what the fuck? It shouldn't be anything near that. And it's third-party sellers that are gouging. So we do sell it from
that's good to know for people, for sure. I got, this one looking at on, and I'll link everything below for people, but the deck is on, I believe, Playing Cards or Gamecraft or one of those places. And then the deck people can get directly from you. And now with the book too, I got both of this on Amazon. All of the Quavaria books are on Amazon too. Yeah, this is really wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for your time, and especially for the work that you do and how generously you share. Like I said before, I feel it's very rare that I find people share and impart their wisdom in such a way. And to some extent, I feel like for people who are so focused on particular knowledge, it's almost like a responsibility in a way. I don't know if you feel that way, to
It's
share that.
things are fragmenting so much economically and
Yeah,
politically and socially that you don't want to live in that world. Well, you change it by changing yourself and by how you act. And
exactly.
one of the things is you don't have to monetize everything. There are people that can't afford this, or they're in a country where it costs a fortune. It's just give people access to stuff. Oh, well, everyone will take it for free, and then they'll do this, that, and the other. It's like, fine, it goes where it needs to go. That's the attitude. Let it go where it needs to go.
Yeah,
Put it up for sale. People will buy it. People will take it for free. It really doesn't matter. It will work in a way for necessity, and it does. We get what we need, and we do live simply, so it's fine. But there's no community anymore, and the only way to build a community again is by people giving, taking, helping, moving things around, not being individual purchase units. I am only here to consume, it's like I'm here for
yeah.
the community.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important, and in my psychology field, it's the same thing. When you specialize in something, I feel you need to give that information away, and don't worry. I always hear people say, as a content creator, aren't you afraid? You're not going to get clients, and it's like, no, people who want to work one-on-one will be there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and people who don't and they want that knowledge, they can access. So it's incredibly important. I agree. We have to start mirroring back the world that we want to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking me to chat
Oh,
with you.
the
It was
pleasure is
meant
all
to
mine.
be.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
all right. Thank you.
Don't hang on. Thank you so much.